Hello, everyone. Welcome to this 24th edition of Fantasia International Film Festival, an online edition, as you have noticed. It is day 7 of the festival. There's still 7 more days left, so we are right in the middle. There's plenty movies to see. For the live screening tonight, we have at 9:15 the world premiere of Kriya, an Indian horror movie that I highly recommend. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., there's a panel. It is a Miskatonic tribute to Stuart Gordon. So we have panelists such as Graham Skipper, Barbara Crampton, Jeffrey Combs, Brian Newsna, and others. So if you want to register for that event, it's free, and you can go on our website to check the special events page, and you can just click on the Zoom link. Tomorrow at 9 p.m. there will be the restored version of No Way Home, a movie by our dear friend Bodhi Jonavizio. Followed by a conversation between Buddy and Mitch Davis, our programmer-in-chief. And if you want to check out our on-demand titles that are available until September 2nd, you can check out documentaries like Morgana or Feels Good Man. And if you're into science fiction, maybe Friedberry, Lapsis, go check out our schedule and our website. There's still plenty. We also have retrospective titles. We have pre-Coffin Joe movies and an Arrow video restoration of Sting of Death. For now, we are going to be talking about Texas Trip, a documentary that is available on demand. So again, until September 2nd, so you can still grab your ticket on our platform. And I'm here with the cast and crew of Texas Trip. So guys, if you want to reappear with me. So for those of you who may have not seen or have already seen Texas Trip is described as a pre-apocalyptic Lynchian urban exploration film. It's a documentary set in the decor of decaying drive-ins that follows many underground artists and noise musicians that are here with us tonight. So I'm going to introduce a little bit everyone. Maxime and Axamel, if you can reopen your video.
Celia, you have stopped.
Show us your face.
Sorry, Celia, you have stopped my camera, and I cannot do anything because it's you.
Are you sure? I don't think I can do that. There you are. Yeah, awesome. So we have director Maxime Lachaud, as you've noticed, and co-director and cinematographer Steve Balestreri. We have Grady, aka Attic Ted, sorry, and we have Giles, aka Mother Fakir, and we have with us Axamel. So welcome everyone. So maybe starting at the beginning, we can start with introducing all of you guys, so our audience know where you're from, what's your background, and what's your journey in general before we begin into Texas Trip. So maybe Max, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
First, thank you very much, Celia, and the Fantasia Film Festival. We are very, very happy to have the premiere here, even if it's a virtual edition. Well, let's say that it's hard to introduce your own self. I write books, I make movies, I'm a journalist, I'm also a programmer like you for festivals. I do a lot of things, and I really love music also, and cinema, of course.
Yeah, I think what's good to know about Max maybe is that you wrote a book about redneck in movies, which is something that I'm sure our audience would be really into. It's a really big, fat book about redneck in cinema.
Let's say I've got a passion for everything that is weird, bizarre, and that does not things that do not interest many people. And and I love the underground culture of the south of the US.
Cool. We're going to talk a lot about that. Steve, et si tu veux, tu peux le faire en français, tu peux t'introduire. Tu es un directeur de la photo sur le film. Quel est ton background, d'où est-ce que tu viens?
J'ai fait la réalisation et la photographie. Peut-être, I would like to apologize because I'm going to talk in French tonight. My English is not as good as I wish, so sorry for that. Eh bien, ouais, tout simplement, je suis réalisateur de films documentaires. Je fais beaucoup de films de commande aussi parce que ne peut pas faire que du film pour se nourrir. Et je fais aussi beaucoup d'images pour d'autres réalisateurs, comme directeur de la photo. Voilà. Après, sinon, je fais de la photographie aussi, de la peinture. Et voilà. C'était la première fois que ma connexion est très instable, apparemment. Je ne sais pas si vous m'entendez encore.
Oui, on l'entend.
D'accord. Je suis dans le garage, c'est très difficile. Voilà. Peut-être on développera après pourquoi on est venu on a fait ce film avec Max, comment on s'est rencontrés, comment moi je l'ai rencontré sur cette thématique du sud des États-Unis, parce qu'il y a eu des glissements dans le film. Voilà. Ah, excuse-moi, tu dois peut-être traduire. Merci Célia.
It's fine. No, most of our audience speak French, so very quickly, basically Steve is a photographer, he's a director of photography, he also paints, and does a lot of things. And yeah, for sure, we are going to develop a little bit more on how Steve and Max met and the genesis of the movie. So maybe Akshamo, do you want to tell us about yourself? Okay, Akshamo is shy. Maybe also
it's nice to try. It's nice to try, but I'm not sure you will get some real words from Akshamel.
Okay. Good to know. Okay. So
but maybe some glossolalia or something.
So Grady, where are you from, and what is your own background?
Well, I live in South Texas near Austin, and I was mostly a visual artist, and then kind of got into making music. And I mean, I've been a big fan of weirdo stuff all around, and very luckily, Max came across some music I made and some music that I put out. I have a record label called Pecan Crazy, and Max first contacted me about 10 years ago, and then helped me come to France to tour the first time in 2012, and it was such a joy. And so anyway, I mix this visual art with kind of theater performance and with my music. With Addict Ted, I'm being a lot of different characters, utilizing these different masks. And I'm not that really good of a musician necessarily, but I play a lot of different things. And with technology, you can technology keeps making it easier and easier to be an artist. And so I utilize that. In Texas, I have friends that play with me on the film. Kobe Cardoso is playing drums on most of the Addict Ted performances. When I tour in Europe, it's usually by myself. I would actually be in France right now if it wasn't for this stupid president that we have and this terrible response to this strange moment that we're in. But, you roll with the punches, and I'm happy to be here with you guys, seeing your smiling faces on my screen.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Grady. What about you, Mother Fakir?
Yeah. I ended up in Texas for the first time about 20 years ago, and then I've been bouncing between Texas and France pretty steadily since. I'm not sure which one I've spent more in, but on both of those places, I've just had a kind of long career in the underground art scene, either as a performer or as I had a radio show for a while in Texas, kind of presenting a number of these artists, and just always been passionate about the avant-garde and the more underground performances, be it video, audio, theater, dance. So I guess that's how Max and I became friends, was because we had that similar interest, and then he'd seen me perform, or then I was on his show, or we talked a lot, and then I had the pleasure of participating in this project. I guess that brings us up to the present.
Right. One of the things that I love the best in the movie, or and we're talking about introducing yourself, and there's a lot of talk about identity. There's a lot of talk about wearing masks, personas, alter egos, specifically, between Attic Ted and Mother Fakir. And I would like to know, what does it mean for you to have this alter ego, and where can we find them? Where did you find yours?
You want to go first, Grady, or should
I? Go ahead.
So my alter ego is Mother Fakir, which is a really clever play on words for somebody that does Fakir performances. And just kind of became this, very much alter ego. We talk about it a little bit in the film, between who I am in the real world and, somebody that's on stage, kind of normal thing. But then in the last, I've performed under that name for, I think I started in 2004. And then starting in 2014, 2015. So I carried that, carried that moniker for a little while. And then started to put my own personal life into that work of Mother Fakir, and to really meld kind of the two together with stage. The name of the show is Carrosserie, which is body work would be the English translation. And it was kind of just a therapeutic, kind of a cathartic process for me to kind of utilize what's probably the outwardly stronger character, or the one-dimensional strength of my stage persona, to help kind of build up some of the dents, and sand them out and repaint them. That was kind of Mother Fakir, Carrosserie. I don't do much. I think I don't. There's stuff out there somewhere on the internet. You can find it if you want to. I'm not putting anything out anymore, really. So.
How about you, Grady?
Well, the masks for me was kind of accidental. Performing is really, it's really embarrassing. And in some of my earlier bands, we would just set up a lot of gear and kind of hide behind the gear and play. And that helped. But with Attic Ted, it was kind of an accident. Halloween corresponded with one of our very first shows. And I just realized how much more fun it was to perform as someone else than just, you know, a regular guy on stage. There's just thousands of just regular dudes on stage, and it's really kind of boring. So to be an old man, or to be a woman, or to be a cockroach, just really made it a lot more fun for me. And then I don't know. So that's all I can say, I guess. I'm just trying to have fun and make it entertaining for the audience. So I can use that excuse basically, because it's just embarrassing to show yourself on stage, or just in life, period.
How about you, Maxime? Would you say something?
I guess I'll break my silence here. It's a little unnatural to break character for me because of what Grady was saying. In a way, one could say once people discover the identity of a witch, they come to your house and chop you up with the machete. So in that sense, it's a little security, tongue in cheek, but yeah, that's me.
Cool. For those who from the audience who don't are not familiar with your guys' music, and who would like to know more, maybe like obviously noise music is very underground. Where can we find you guys? I'm guessing you have like band camps and stuff like that, but where else can we find you? And also, what are your influences? If I want to listen to more of this kind of music, can you give us some names that you like and that influence you?
I guess I'll go first. Well, like I said, I do a label called Pecan Crazy that is basically an outlet to share a lot of the cool bands that I've met while touring, and a lot of friends from Austin, some that are highlighted in this documentary. So, Pecan Crazy on Bandcamp, Addict Head also all over YouTube. But I think my greatest influences are just my friends and the weird underground people that I've met while touring in France and Germany. And, I think the underground has the most precious stuff. And so it's kind of nice to keep it to ourselves, but, it's available to find, if you want to look.
What about the others? Influences?
Music Concrete. I mean, if you want to break down what the actual style, most of the music that I create is all put onto magnetic bands. It's then looped and processed and reprocessed and looped out again. That's why it sounds repetitive. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to do anything with cassettes and not talk about Pierre Henry, who invented it. J.G. Thirlwell is Scott Walker. It's a huge reference point for me. It's actually funny because I have my first, like, several songs from the first album I put out are up on the internet, on, I don't know, SoundCloud, something. Yeah, SoundCloud. But it was when I was recording that album, the person I was recording with was actually like, you might want to look into this guy, Scott Walker. And I hadn't heard of him when I recorded that album, and then fell into it afterwards. And I was just like, this is what was inspiring me before I even knew it. But those would, that's kind of the Colin Stetson, Canadian artist, to throw that one out there. those are all like people that have really stayed with me. There's always bands that come and go, but there's certain artists that are just, it's, you know, they're always in the back of my head every day. I try to perform once a year. We'll see if it happens. I mean, yeah, randomly, I will randomly perform somewhere if I'm invited and I'm available. And other than that, I don't know. Talk to Grady. He might have some of my tapes laying around or something. I don't know. That's all I've got.
And maybe Aksham, if you want to reply to that by a little performance, I think we would very much like to hear you.
Yeah. So I just released our first LP on record here by a label in France, actually, and yeah, we would be touring that, you know, if the COVID wasn't happening. But I'll do a quick performance for you here. Thank you.
Nice.
Amazing. Wow. That was really, really beautiful. I lost my train of thought. Thank you. So
it always makes this kind of effect on people.
Good suggestion.
Don't worry.
It is really magical. There's something so ritualistic and not just hypnotizing. No, how do you describe it, Max?
Well, since the first time I heard the music of Akramel, I was kind of fascinated. And the first time I discovered it, it was on a tape. The kind of sound, it seemed like something very old. Even it was like the tape was old, but in fact it was not. But it seemed to come really from another era. And there's something so primal, so for us it was very interesting in the film because there's this sense of timelessness. I don't know how to say, but you lose the notion of time, but not like when you listen to ambient music. There's something more, yeah, even it's like it could have been done in, I don't know, in a cave in the old times, or we don't know where it comes from. And the thing is, the fact that it comes from Texas, it's even more amazing. At first, I thought it was from Northern Europe, but in fact, it was obvious that it was from there at some point. And maybe it's the pure American folk music. It's this. And especially in the film, we really wanted to record the performances, not use some recordings, or we wanted to have this kind of archaeological approach, like Alan Lomax, or the guy who recorded the Bluesman in Louisiana and all that. Wanted to, this kind of anthropology of sound. And that's why all the performances are done live. So maybe it's not perfect, but the emotion is there. And
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say I think something in the movie is, as you say, it's very timeless. Just as much the music as also what you say. In general, it's just as much. As Atik says, I don't create the music, and I remember the music as if it was something old, and but at the same time, the film feels prophetic. It also feels like it's in a futuristic way, like it's announcing. It's pre-apocalyptic. It's announcing something, in the future also. So this timelessness is very, very surprising. No. But let's maybe try to go at the very beginning and the genesis of the movie, or maybe how, Steve, did you meet Max and how this project started?
Tu veux que je commence, Max?
Ouais. Yeah.
En fait, au départ, on se connaît depuis longtemps avec Max. On travaillait ensemble sur un magazine culturel. Donc moi, j'aimais beaucoup travailler avec lui. Et quand le magazine s'est arrêté, on s'est dit, tiens, qu'est-ce qu'on pourrait faire ensemble? Et moi, ce que j'aimais beaucoup chez Max, c'était les discussions qu'on avait ensemble. Il parle beaucoup, il est très riche. Et c'était tout ce qui tournait autour de sa culture du sud des États-Unis, évidemment. Donc, que ce soit la littérature ou la musique. Donc, il m'a fait découvrir Harry Cruz, Joe Lonsdale. Et on avait même écrit un portrait de Joe Lonsdale, un film documentaire qu'on avait proposé, qui n'avait pas fonctionné en France. Et puis, on s'est dit, à travers une nouvelle de Joe Lonsdale, mais ça, Max en parlera mieux que moi, puisque c'est un peu son histoire, on a vu qu'il y avait des jonctions entre l'univers de Max et Joe Lonsdale autour des drive-in et du cinéma d'exploitation. Donc, on s'est posé la question, savoir qu'est-ce qui restait des drive-in et de ce cinéma exubérant. Et ça a été un petit peu le point de départ de notre film. On est parti en repérage il y a plus de 4 ans, 5 ans maintenant, je crois, avec cette idée de chercher en fait les traces de ces drive-in, de ce cinéma d'exploitation qui pouvait peut-être perdurer encore, et de comprendre aussi la puissance cathartique en fait de ce cinéma-là, qui pouvait servir d'exutoire à toute une génération d'Américains qui pouvaient exorciser leurs démons sur des écrans. Voilà, mais on s'est vite rendu compte que tout ça avait disparu. Et c'est là que notre film commence.
Maybe I'll translate very quickly, although I'm sure most of our audience understood, but basically Steve and Max worked together for a cultural magazine, and Steve really liked his discussions and his Max's culture, especially about the USA. They started making the documentary, one portrait about Joe Lansdale, and they found the connection between him and the drive-ins and Max knowledge for drive-ins, and they started location scouting about 4 years ago, searching for the traces of exploitation cinema and try to understand the cathartic power that this cinema has and how it helps exercise demons in American society. And that's pretty much how where the movie starts. More or less.
Yeah, more or less.
And so, Max?
Yeah, well, for me, it's as Steve said, it's a long story because it started when I was a teenager. It all started with a book. I think it's always it's this. It's a book that is called Texas Trip. And it was when I was 16 years old, and it was a very expensive book, but I was fascinated by it, by its cover and its title. And it was so expensive, but for my 16th birthday, my older sister, she offered it to me. And so it became my the book that changed my life at the time, and that's when I got interested in the south of the U.S. And at the time, I was already very much into music and to the Butthole Surfers and this kind of bands. And there was also the translator of this book was really fond of music. And in fact, it's not the original title. The original title it's By Bizarre Ends. But in fact, it took this title because it was a compilation of weird Southern music with Daniel Johnston, this kind of people. And that started there. And in this book, there was a short story that was called Hell Through Windshield. And it was completely crazy. It took place in an American drive-in in Texas. And people knocking on each other while watching Night of the Living Dead and all that. And at the beginning, I thought it was all work of the imagination. And I realized, in fact, it was nonfiction. It really happened in Texas because drive-ins, it does not exist in France. And it's so American. Even though there are some in Australia and so, yeah, as Steve said at the beginning, we were very much interested in that. And there was also a kind of starting point. It was another writer from Texas, Mitch Cullen, is the author of Tideland, notably, that has been turned into a movie by Terry Gilliam. And at some point, I don't remember, it was maybe in 2011, he lost a close friend of him. And at the time I had also lost a friend of mine. And he came back to Texas because he doesn't live in Texas anymore. And when he arrived there, the drive-ins of his childhood had disappeared. There was nothing left. Everything has been covered by parking lots and all that. And so it was not only his story that had disappeared, but also his memory had been reduced to this kind of empty parking lots or things like that. And it moved me a lot. And that's why we were interested in going to Texas to know what was left, because everybody has a story to tell about a drive-in. Especially, we've got Americans, and every American has a memory of a drive-in. It's really something like a myth of America, and especially for us in Europe. And so we wanted to find what was left, and especially what was interesting, it was these films that were made in the 60s, in the 70s, these B movies that were in fact, I think, like through their monstrosity, they were like a real portrait of what was America at the time. If you look at something like The Intruder by Roger Corman, or even Night of the Living Dead or Carnival of Souls, they tell you more than any Hollywood movie that you can see about what was going on in the US at that time. And now all of that is this kind of productions does not really exist anymore. This market does not exist anymore. These drive-ins now, you've got either on the one hand like porn drive-ins, like very sleazy things, like the extreme sleaziness. You can find it there. There are 2 porn drive-ins left in Texas. And then there are these drive-ins for family, like it was at the beginning, like for everyone, not things that are R-rated. And so we went there to find all that, and we found only ghosts. we found only ruins. So we went there, and it was like an apocalypse, as you said. And we had this culture from the past. People have dreamt in these places. They have shared a lot of things, and now it's all disappearing. And then we talked with Steve, and we thought that it was really interesting to take this figure of the freak, of the masked monster that was in these movies from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and make a kind of iconoclast parallel, parallel with what is going on now in the performance artistic scene in Texas. And our point of view is that we said, since it's all this culture is reduced to ghosts, we will follow the monsters in a way, but we love monsters, of course. We will follow the artists, maybe to understand a little more what has been lost. And so in fact, there's a kind of the movie really starts from the kind of death, with all these ruins, all these fixed shots, and then we go towards a kind of rebirth, I think, like a performance, like a ritual, and with the last scene, with I cannot say more, but it's like an apocalypse. You go from you destroy to create something new. And the notion of destruction and creation is very important in the film. there's it. I'm sorry, Ernestina cannot be there. She's got problems of connection because she's in the woods. But it's a character in the movie, and Tina, she's got a discussion with Chris, with whom she makes music, and they talk about destruction and distraction. And there's kind of they use the two different words. And it's very interesting what comes out of that. But yeah, we wanted to create this kind of pre-apocalyptic atmosphere, and this dichotomy between reality and illusion. What is real, what is normal. And we thought that the masked characters, it was so interesting because when you look at a mask, what do you really look at? Do you look at the person who is behind the mask? Do you really look at the mask? Do you look at what is outside of it, the landscape? What do you really look at? And this kind of mirror image, we thought it was really a powerful symbol for the film, and to talk about what is lost. Okay, I'm sorry, I talk a lot.
No, it's fine. It's fine. A quick question from the audience who are watching it. From Timur. He's just asking how many drive-ins are left in Texas, and then he says, "Screw the land developers trying to snuff out the art over condos." So how many do you think drive-ins are left?
It's about in the 60s. You had something like for the whole US, it was like almost 5,000, and almost 10% of this was in Texas. And so now you can reduce that to maybe not even 40 drive-ins. But there are states like in Louisiana, there are no more drive-ins, nothing left. Texas, it's interesting because there are still some, Grady can talk to us, because I know that now, you cannot go in a normal theater. I think with the virus, no, maybe they had a second life, but there is one in New Braunfels, not so far from San Marcos. But it's really not the spirit that was, that was in this book at the time. And when we talked with Joe Lansdale, for him, it is completely dead. What is there is just a nostalgic image for people who fantasize their younger years. I don't know. Maybe my English is bizarre sometimes. But yeah, that's this. Yeah, it's kind of nostalgia for something that is maybe an illusion of what you have lived, or I don't know, maybe the point of view of Grady on this would be interesting. Because I think that on Saturdays, you go to the drive-in at the moment to see old movies from the 80s, or?
Well, what's funny, since COVID has started, there's no new movies being put out, but the drive-in is still open. And so they're showing all these 80s classics. We went and saw Wizard of Oz on the big screen and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. But the fact is, New Braunfels is kind of a conservative southern town. And so we actually don't go on Friday and Saturday because it's so crowded on Friday and Saturday that it doesn't feel safe. So we try to go Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. But it's lovely, you know, you're kind of out in the country and there's, seeing we went and saw Ghostbusters on the big screen. My daughter had never seen that. So not the same as the old days, but, you know, they're trying to hold on and it's been fun.
Yeah, it's very ironic. I mean, again, like the movie is also prophetic in that way that it talks about driving decaying, yet we are watching it now where drivings are kind of like coming back just a little bit so that, you know, there's movies to be watched at least, you know, outside of internet. So, and we considered with Fantasia actually to show movies in the drive-in, but just the problem is that the only drive-in, you know, around Montreal is way too far, so you know, it was not possible. So yeah, it's funny. Another question from the audience, so also from Timur. There used to be a period in America when bands like Crash Worship and Savage Republic were able to hold events in warehouses, the desert, isolated places. Do you think because of everything being too developed that era is over, or can you still continue the tradition within Texas due to its natural, beautiful weirdness?
Yeah.
It would be interesting to have the point of view of Maxime also on this.
Crash Worship for sure. They would play in like abandoned warehouses, and we've actually done some things like that. And because we're based in Houston, it's very industrial, so there's lots of abandoned warehouses and derelict buildings and rooftops that DIY shows are put on there. So I think it's not alive like it was in the 90s, but you know, I think there's maybe a small resurgence happening there, and I kind of wish it would kind of resurface again, that kind of DIY approach to shows.
Those shows were dangerous. You know, I went to a few, and they were kind of outrageous and terrifying. I mean, it was terrifying partly because of maybe the drugs that we were on, but besides that, I mean, there was a lot of fire and. But I think the kids today, you know, are more into like dance music, so they're doing these silent discos where everyone's just wearing headphones and going to random places, and you know, having all night dance parties, but no noise is made because everyone has their own set of headphones on. So I think crazy shit's still happening. It's just, you know, it's just people aren't into bands like Crash Worship anymore. It's, you know, it's more dance music. And I think those kids are being creative in their own way too.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say everywhere I've ever lived, I mean, the scene's always cyclical, and it's going to change, and it's going to adapt. It's going to evolve. Major cities, it's not as it used to be much easier to have a full band play, or to have an industrial band or a noise band play. There's so much more density now, and I can't say like, oh, is it a bad thing that there's not like empty warehouses just lying around? Yeah, it was great for a time, but it's also, you know, things change and grow and die. And now you see much more music, like, you know, I'm not saying there's a lot of bands like Achamel, there's only one, but you see more bands that are exploring quieter sounds because we're limited. We can't make those big noises that we used to make when they were brand new. You know, now they've caught on to that. So we have to adapt and evolve. And it's also what's interesting to us. You know, what was amazing and earth-shattering and mind-blowing 10 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 months ago, isn't the same today. And so You know, I mean, when Max first talked to me about this underground music drive-in movie theater movie documentary idea, I was just like, yeah, just sandwich those things together. Having watched the movie, I was like, no, that's exactly like what I remember from the drive-in is very much what you have at the underground shows. You have some people that are there for the show. You have some people that just hang out at the concession stand all night. You got some people that are just there to hook up. You know, I mean, it is a social event center for a certain demographic of people, mostly young people that have extra time to kill and are looking to be entertained. And again, it comes back down to that shock value thing that appeals. You know, so I think it is a you know, I think the music scene today is a evolution of that drive-in culture, and it's always evolving. And it might not be crash worship in a warehouse, it might be a silent disco, or it might be, you know, whatever the future is going to hold in whatever space we can find, you know. And that's the thing. We always evolve. We always find somebody that wants to sell some beer and is going to let us make noise in their basement or in their back room or in their garden, and we're going to exploit that.
Yeah, I was going to ask also, like, you know, with this situation, I mean, Tina at some point, you know, when she's talking around the fire, she's saying, you know, that she's talking about the thrill of performing on stage. Obviously, not really possible right now. So how do you, project yourself as performers in this situation?
Well, I'll say I've taken a nice long break, and it's been really pleasant. I mean, for a long time, I've been touring and playing nonstop. And so instead, the last few months, I like painted the house and, you know, grew some big butternut squash and watched a lot of movies and read a lot of beautiful books. And to have a quiet moment has been really precious. So I'm really not complaining. It's been kind of beautiful.
Another question from the audience, from Queen. So did you decide on the imagistic, poetic tone of the movie before the interviews, or did the interviews help you find the images? Amazing film, by the way, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Ça a coupé, j'ai pas bien compris, Célia.
Alors, je vais te la traduire parce qu'en plus, je pense que tu peux y répondre. Est-ce que vous avez décidé du ton magique et poétique du film avant les interviews, ou est-ce que ce sont les interviews qui vous ont inspiré ces images?
Je dirais que les deux se sont faits un petit peu en même temps. Mais disons qu'il y a différentes sortes d'images dans le film. Il y a à la fois les scènes qu'on voulait, les scènes musicales, j'entends, où on désirait avec Max que ce soit filmé caméra à la main pour être avec les artistes, en fait, pour pas les filmer d'un point de vue de la scène. Il y a une scène où on filme Grady, évidemment, mais la plupart du temps, je suis avec eux sur scène et j'essaie d'être au plus proche, d'être dans leur regard, en fait. C'était ça notre approche, c'est de faire le film avec eux. Et lors des repérages, quand on était venu la première fois avec Max, on était porteur de tout un imaginaire, tout un fantasme aussi du Texas. Et puis, progressivement, en fait, ce qui m'a intéressé, moi, et ce qui nous a intéressé avec Max, c'était ce qui était hors champ, en fait. Ça correspondait certainement à des inquiétudes personnelles à l'époque, mais rapidement, on a filmé des stations-service, des hypermarchés, des mâts de fast-food sur les bords des agglomérations. Et je dis bien agglomération, je ne dis pas des villes, en fait. Donc tout ça, ça a été ça a été un petit peu, ça a été pensé à l'avance. Et puis l'idée des masques après est venue on voulait sortir en fait nos personnages masqués de leur scène, à la fois pour rejoindre ce que disait Max au début, c'est-à-dire faire ressurgir des fantômes du passé, ce passé qui gît toujours dans le présent, sous le sol des parkings qui ont recouvert les drive-in, qui ont disparu. Et puis aussi pour inquiéter et pour questionner le spectateur sur l'uniformisation de la société, sur la question de l'identité aussi. Donc, on voulait opérer ce glissement dans le film de l'inquiétude, en fait. C'est-à-dire qu'au départ, ce qui est inquiétant, c'est plutôt ce qui est inquiétant, enfin, c'est relatif, hein, mais c'est de voir ces personnages masqués. On s'intéresse peu au décor et finalement, on aimerait qu'à la fin du film, ce qui devient inquiétant, c'est plutôt le territoire et cet environnement assez normatif, avec un progrès qui semble recouvrir les choses. Donc, il y avait à la fois tout cet univers-là qu'on avait travaillé en amont, et puis après, il y a eu évidemment le tournage en lui-même avec Giles. Et pour répondre à la question, je pense que rapidement, on s'est dit que Giles serait le guide dans le film, puisqu'il connaissait Tina, il connaissait Grady. Et parce que aussi, il avait un grand recul et une grande analyse sur son parcours. Et il amenait une voix, il amenait une sorte d'inquiétude diffuse dans le film. Une sorte de mélancolie aussi qui surgissait comme ça, parce qu'il était aussi en quête de sens à la fois sur son existence et puis sur la fonction de l'art et sur sa place à lui dans cette société. Donc je dirais que c'est l'enregistrement de sa voix, parce que évidemment qu'il y a eu quelques thématiques qui ont été abordées, mais je pense que Giles, il avait un peu compris les enjeux du film, donc il était capable de se lancer tout seul. Il a une grande habitude de ça. Et c'est sa voix qui nous a guidés, enfin moi qui m'a guidé pour réaliser les images.
Alors, je vais essayer de traduire.
C'est un peu...
Okay. Steve just said, basically, in short, so that basically it was both at the same time. There was two type of images. There was the music scene, and the music scene needed to be hand-handled, camera on the shoulder, to be with the artist directly on stage, very, very close, through their own perspective and vision. But with the location scouting, they had their own already their own fantasy about Texas, their own images, and slowly, what interested them was, I can't read myself anymore. Shoot, what did I write? Oh yeah, so that they started to film what was outside of the screen. So they filmed gas stations, fast food of a small town, and so there was this thought beforehand. And then the mask came after. They wanted to show the ghosts from the past and to question the audience about the society's uniformization. And they wanted to find inquiétude, worrisome, to see the masked characters in a normative environment with a modern decor. And there was Jazz that was going to act as a guide. And he had his own perspective, and he has his own journey, and he brought a lot of melancholia and because of his thought about art and his own existence and his place in society. So his voice guided the image.
Oh,
No, maybe just to add something to the question is that we were interested by this voice over because there was also this intimacy, and we really wanted the images and the geography of Texas to be like a mental space, since we have this imagination, this illusion of a territory, and even in the film, you don't know really where we are. There's a kind of deteriorization, I don't know how to say, but you know, we're kind of lost in these spaces, and that was really this kind of surreal atmosphere we were looking for. And through these voices, the intimate things they say to us, because they talk about their own anxiety and how they, like in the old movies, the old drive-in movies, you know, you take your own fears and anxiety and you create something that is kind of spectacular, theatrical, impressive, but in fact you say something that is even more intimate than what you what you intend to say at the beginning. I don't know if it's clear at all.
No, it is. It is when you see the movie, for sure. So, I mean, there's still 7 days to watch Texas Strip on demand on the platform. Max, is there anywhere else that the audience can look forward to see the movie eventually? Can you make those announcements yet, or?
Yeah, there are some festivals, but they are in France, in Switzerland. In fact, you are the only one in Canada for the moment. So it's only the beginning of a story. So let's see what happens.
Yes, absolutely, and please, like, talk about it, talk about the movie, and help the audience find this little gem. Thank you, everyone. I think.
Thank you.
That's it for now, and hopefully see you around the festival, see you on stage. I would really love that. And yeah, have a good night or a good day, depending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.